The Simpsons has been on the air for 36 years, producing over 790 episodes and tens of thousands of individual jokes. Statistically, some were going to land, but a few landed so specifically. A president named 16 years early, a corporate merger sketched on a background sign 2 decades before it closed. That probability stops being a satisfying answer. Today we're ranking the 8 most famous times the show got it right, starting with one that wasn't even a prediction. Eat Up Martha. Here's the thing about this one. It's not actually a prediction, and it's still one of the most important moments on this entire list. Season 6, Episode 8, Lisa on Ice, November 13th, 1994. At a Springfield Elementary assembly, Bully Dolph pulls out an Apple Newton and scribbles a message with the stylus. The Newton was real. Apple launched it in 1993, and its handwriting recognition software was already a punchline before the episode even aired. Dolph writes, "Beat up Martin." The Newton spits back, "Eat up Martha." Kearney throws the device directly at Martin Prince's head. The gag lasts 8 seconds and never comes up again. This gets cited constantly as a prediction of smartphone autocorrect. It isn't. Autocorrect already existed. Microsoft Word shipped with it in 1993. The Newton's handwriting recognition was so bad that Gary Trudeau had already roasted it in Doonesbury with the same type of gag, egg freckles. Writers Mike Scully and his team weren't predicting anything. They were mocking a product that was already failing in real time. But here's where it gets genuinely weird. Nitin Ganatra, Apple's former director of engineering for iOS, told Fast Company that Eat Up Martha became a literal rallying cry inside Apple's iPhone development team. Engineers would say it in hallways. Scott Forstall reportedly screened the Simpsons clip for his team. Apple ran a dedicated week-long hackathon specifically to solve the keyboard problem, and the ghost of Lunch Lady Doris's Newton scene was in the room the entire time. The Simpsons didn't predict autocorrect. It did something stranger. An 8-second throwaway gag in 1994 shaped how the iPhone's keyboard was built 13 years later. The show didn't see the future. It became part of the blueprint. But if you think one background joke accidentally reshaping Silicon Valley is impressive, wait until we get to a barrel label that foreshadowed a continent-wide food scandal 19 years before anyone got arrested. Assorted horse parts. The joke is on screen for maybe 3 seconds. Season 5, Episode 19. Sweet Seymour Skinner's Badass Song, April 28, 1994. Santa's little helper escapes a storage closet after catching the scent of cafeteria food. The camera pans to Lunch Lady Doris, scooping from a large industrial drum. The label on the barrel reads, "Assorted horse parts, now with more testicles." It's dark, it's fast, and it's a joke about the legendarily horrifying quality of American school lunches. Then the scene moves on, and nobody thinks about it again for 19 years. January 15th, 2013. Ireland's Food Safety Authority announces that DNA testing has found horse meat in frozen beef burgers sold across Irish and British supermarkets. Tesco, Lidl, Aldi. One Tesco sample tests at 29% horse DNA. By February, Findus beef lasagna products in the UK come back at up to 100% horse meat. The scandal spreads across 13 European countries. There are mass product recalls, criminal investigations, and the eventual imprisonment of Dutch meat trader Willie Selton, who had been selling horse meat labeled as beef for years. The internet immediately went digging. Within days, Lunch Lady Doris's barrel was everywhere. The visual parallel is hard to argue with. Horse meat hidden inside food products, consumed by unsuspecting people. And 19 years is a gap that stops feeling like coincidence and starts feeling like something else. But context matters here. Jokes about mystery meat and horse in the hamburger long predated The Simpsons. The anxiety around institutional food concealing unspeakable ingredients is as old as processed food itself. Writers Sam Simon and John Swartzwelder weren't predicting a specific European supply chain fraud. They were tapping into an existing cultural dread about what ends up in the barrel. The episode was about American school cafeterias. The real scandal was about British supermarket beef. Same punchline ingredient, completely different context. Still, 19 years, a barrel with a label, and every single outlet covering the scandal eventually found their way back to Springfield Elementary. At least Lunch Lady Doris was upfront about it. The next prediction on this list involves something far more dangerous, and nobody saw it coming until the tiger was already biting. White tiger. Everyone who watched Siegfried and Roy knew this was going to happen eventually. The Simpsons just said it out loud first. Season 5, Episode 10. Springfield, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Legalized Gambling. December 16th, 1993. When Springfield legalizes gambling, Mr. Burns opens a glitzy casino. The entertainment roster includes Gunther and Ernst, two flamboyant German magicians performing with a white tiger named Anastasia. The parallels to Siegfried Fischbacher and Roy Horn are 0% subtle. In a dream sequence, Anastasia recalls her capture in the wild, snatched by the duo via tranquilizer dart and hauled into a life of sequined stage shows. The tiger snaps. She attacks both performers on stage. The audience assumes it's part of the act. 10 years later, it wasn't part of the act. October 3rd, 2003. 7-year-old white Bengal tiger Montecore attacked Roy Horn during during a live performance at the Mirage in Las Vegas. The tiger grabbed Roy by the sleeve, dragged him across the stage, and eventually bit down on his neck, severing an artery near his spine. Roy survived but was left partially paralyzed. The Siegfried and Roy show, which had performed over 30,000 times across more than 13 years, never truly returned. Roy Horn died in May 2020 from COVID-19 complications, never having fully recovered. The visual parallels between the animated attack and the real one are striking. German entertainers, White Tiger, Casino Stage, an animal that the audience initially misreads. Writers Bill Oakley and Josh Weinstein later acknowledged the prediction was built on logic more than intuition. They followed the obvious danger to its obvious conclusion. Animal behaviorists had been raising alarms about big cat performance acts for years. The Simpsons didn't need insider knowledge. They needed only the willingness to ask what happens when an apex predator decides it's done performing. That's what separates this from a lucky guess. The writers weren't imagining something unlikely. They were illustrating something inevitable. A joke that only worked because the danger was already real and everyone was pretending it wasn't. Monacore never explained his side of things. Roy Horn insisted to his dying day that the tiger was trying to protect him when he stumbled on stage. Anastasia, in Springfield, had no such ambiguity. She just remembered the dart, and if a tiger attack predicted a decade out feels dark, the next entry on this list is somehow lighter. A pop star, a halftime show, and a set of cables that connected an animated concert in 2012 to the biggest stage in American entertainment 5 years later. The Beautiful Game. Most Simpsons predictions take years to land. This one took 14 months. Season 25, episode 16. You Don't Have to Live Like a Referee. March 30, 2014. Homer gets recruited to referee World Cup matches in Brazil, specifically because of his integrity, in a world where integrity is apparently so rare that a random guy from Springfield qualifies as extraordinary. The episode's villain is the executive vice president of the World Football Federation, a FIFA stand-in so cartoonishly corrupt that he openly tells Homer the rot runs through every level of the sport. Bribe offers come from every direction. Referees are bought. Matches are fixed. And in case the show was being too subtle, the vice president gets arrested for corruption on screen mid-episode. The episode also, almost as a throwaway, depicted Germany winning the World Cup. The 2014 tournament in Brazil was still 3 months away when it aired. Germany won the 2014 World Cup. They beat Argentina 1-0 in the final. In the semifinal, they destroyed the host nation Brazil 7-1 in what remains one of the most stunning single results in the history of the sport. But the bigger hit came 14 months after the episode aired. On May 27, 2015, Swiss authorities arrested 7 high-ranking FIFA officials at the Bor Olac Hotel in Zurich, acting on U.S. Department of Justice indictments. The charges included racketeering, wire fraud, and money laundering stretching back decades. FIFA president Sepp Blatter resigned within days. The investigation ultimately implicated dozens of officials across multiple confederations and triggered the organization's deepest institutional crisis since its founding. The BBC ran comparisons. Fox Sports ran comparisons. The clips went viral. The internet did what the internet does. Here's the thing though. FIFA's corruption wasn't a secret. Investigative journalists had been documenting it for years. The 2010 World Cup bidding process for Qatar was already drowning in bribery allegations when writer Michael Price sat down to write this episode. The show didn't uncover anything. It just treated the inevitable prosecution as settled fact while the rest of the world was still asking if rather than when. That's what makes this one interesting. Not that the Simpsons saw something nobody else could see, it's that they were the only ones willing to put it on screen and say it out loud. But if predicting a corruption scandal with a 14-month runway feels impressive, the next one on this list had a 20-year head start, and the evidence was swimming in a reservoir in Argentina. Blinky. 21 years. That's how long it took for a cartoon fish to show up in real life. Season 2, Episode 4. 2 cars in every garage and 3 eyes on every fish. November 1st, 1990. Bart catches a 3-eyed orange fish in the stream running directly behind the Springfield nuclear power plant. The fish makes the newspaper. Nuclear safety inspectors arrive. Violations are exposed. Mr. Burns, facing shutdown, runs for governor and defends the mutation on television as the next step in the evolutionary ladder, not a horrible mutant. His campaign collapses when Marge serves him Blinky at a televised dinner and Burns spits it out on camera. The fish is named after the ghost in Pac-Man. It becomes the show's single most enduring visual symbol of environmental negligence. Writers Sam Simon and John Swartzwelder weren't working in a vacuum. 3 Mile Island had melted down in 1979. Chernobyl had exploded in 1986. Nuclear contamination fears were embedded in the American cultural imagination, and a mutated fish swimming downstream from a leaking plant was the logical, darkest cartoon extension of an anxiety that was already everywhere. Blinky wasn't a prediction, he was a punchline built from existing dread. Then October 2011 happened. Fisherman Julian Zmut pulled a 3-eyed wolffish fish from a reservoir outside Cordoba, Argentina. The reservoir received hot water runoff directly from the nearby Embalse nuclear power plant. Zmut told reporters they were fishing at night and didn't notice at first. Then someone shone a flashlight on the catch. Third eye, dead center, staring back. The fish was sent for radiation testing. Results were never publicly confirmed. It didn't matter. The story hit global headlines within hours, and every single outlet, HuffPost, the BBC, Reuters, Time, led with the same reference, Blinky by name. The cartoon fish from a 1990 episode of The Simpsons had become the cultural shorthand through which the entire world processed the story of a real mutant fish found near a real nuclear facility 21 years later. The science is messier than the headline suggested. Polycephaly and extra eye development occur in fish for multiple reasons, including parasitic infection and genetic mutation entirely unrelated to radiation. The Argentine fish's third eye wasn't definitively linked to the plant, but the image, that specific image, a three-eyed fish downstream from a nuclear facility, is exactly what Springfield's writers drew in 1990, and it's exactly what came out of that reservoir. Blinky didn't just predict a headline. He became the only way the world knew how to talk about it when it happened. And if a mutant fish with 21 years of runway feels like the ceiling, it isn't, because the next prediction on this list was sitting in plain sight on a building exterior for 2 decades before anyone understood what they were looking at. Descended from the sky. The episode is widely considered the worst in the show's history. It still predicted one of the most iconic halftime shows ever performed. Season 23, episode 22. Lisa Goes Gaga. May 20th, 2012. Lady Gaga guest stars as herself, arriving in Springfield aboard her personal Gaga Express train to boost the town's catastrophically low self-esteem. During a concert sequence, she soars through the air suspended on cables, wearing a shimmering silver outfit and knee-high boots. She cycles through 18 different costumes. She plays piano during a ballad. Pyrotechnics go off. The crowd loses its mind. The episode earned a 4.0 out of 10 on IMDb, the series' lowest ever rating, and was almost universally panned on release. On February 5th, 2017, Lady Gaga opened Super Bowl LI at NRG Stadium in Houston by leaping from the stadium roof on cables, wearing a custom glittering Versace bodysuit. She descended through a constellation of 300 Intel drones arranged into the American flag. She performed rapid-fire outfit changes, played piano during a ballad segment, and delivered one of the most visually spectacular halftime performances in NFL history. The broadcast drew 111.3 million viewers. The side-by-side screenshots went viral within hours. Billboard, Variety, CBS News, Time, and the Washington Post all ran comparison pieces. The specifics that made people stop scrolling. The cables, the aerial descent, the silver costuming, the piano ballad, the sheer scale of the speckle. 5 years separated the cartoon from the stadium, and they looked almost identical. But here's where the prediction gets complicated. Showrunner Al Jean brought Gaga onto the episode after James L. Brooks saw her on 60 Minutes. The creative team designed their animated Gaga to faithfully mirror her already existing performance style. She had performed a cable-suspended stunt on Good Morning America in 2011, a full year before the episode aired. The 18 costume changes parodied outfits she had already worn publicly, including the meat dress from the 2010 MTV VMAs and looks from the Monster Ball Tour. The writers weren't imagining who Gaga would become. They were drawing who she already was. What the show actually predicted was narrower and stranger, that Lady Gaga would eventually headline the Super Bowl, and that when she did, she would do exactly what she always does. Fly, sparkle, change costumes at a pace that makes your eyes hurt. The writers captured her artistic DNA so precisely in 2012 that when she finally had the biggest stage in American entertainment, the performance they had already animated was waiting for her. The prediction wasn't clairvoyance. It was characterization so accurate it became prophecy by accident. And if a pop star's halftime show predicted 5 years out is impressive, the sign on the next building has it beat by 15 years and names names. A sign on a building. The shot lasts 2 seconds. You'd miss it if you blinked. Season 10, Episode 5, When You Dish Upon a Star. November 8th, 1998. Teen. Homer stumbles into the lives of Ron Howard, Alec Baldwin, and Kim Basinger, who are hiding out in Springfield to escape the pressures of fame. Ron Howard, voicing himself, eventually walks onto the 20th Century Fox studio lot to pitch one of Homer's terrible movie ideas. The camera holds briefly on the building's exterior. In the background, almost incidentally, a sign reads 20th Century Fox, a division of Walt Disney Company. Inside the office, a Star Wars poster hangs on the wall. The gag gets maybe one laugh from whoever catches it. Then the episode moves on. 20 years, 4 months, and 12 days later, on March 20th, 2019, the Walt Disney Company completed its $71.3 billion acquisition of 21st Century Fox. The deal absorbed the Simpsons' own production company, along with the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, Avatar, FX Networks, and National Geographic. The sign on the cartoon building was now the legal reality. The show's writers were technically working for the mouse. The internet lost its mind. Billboard, Variety, The Washington Post, The Guardian. Every outlet ran the same two-image comparison. The background gag from 1998, the corporate press release from 2019. The specificity is what makes people stop scrolling. Not a big company buying Fox, not media consolidation in the abstract, Disney specifically owning Fox specifically, printed on a sign as a throwaway background joke in a Ron Howard cameo episode from 1998. The Star Wars poster adds another layer that nobody planned. Disney acquired Lucasfilm in 2012, 7 years before absorbing Fox. By the time the acquisition closed, the franchise hanging in that fictional Fox office had also ended up under the exact same corporate roof. Executive producer Mike Scully provided the mundane explanation in an interview with IndieWire. It wasn't prophecy. Disney had purchased ABC's parent company Capsities in 1996, 2 years before the episode was written. The writers watched Disney swallow a media giant, saw the direction the industry was heading, and pushed the logic forward to its most absurd conclusion, a sign on a Fox building that said Disney's name on it. Scully said it plainly. The joke was a reference to that, and of course, to 20 years in the future when we knew we'd all wind up working for them. Showrunner Al Jean's response when the deal was announced was characteristically dry. He tweeted, "I predict people will make far too much of this mere coincidence." Matt Groening drew a new cartoon of Homer strangling Mickey Mouse to mark the occasion. Here's what separates this from everything else on this list. The Simpsons didn't predict an event. It predicted an inevitability and named the exact companies involved 20 years before the contracts were signed. That's not a lucky guess. That's satire functioning exactly as intended, drawn on a building in the background of a scene nobody was supposed to study this closely. But a sign predicting a merger, as specific as it is, still isn't the top of this list, because the final prediction didn't hide in a background detail. It was spoken out loud in plain English 16 years before it came true. President Trump, this is the one. The most famous, most cited, most culturally significant Simpsons prediction in the show's history, and the one surrounded by more myth than any other entry on this list. Season 11, Episode 17. Bart to the Future. March 19th, 2000. Bart visits a Native American casino and receives a vision of his life roughly 30 years into the future. In this future, Lisa Simpson is the first straight female president of the United States. She sits in the Oval Office wearing a purple pantsuit and pearl necklace. Her advisors brief her on the state of the nation. And Lisa delivers the line. As you know, we've inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump. Her Secretary of State, Milhouse Van Houten, responds, "We're broke. That's it. That's the prediction." 16 words of expository dialogue in a future set episode about Bart being a deadbeat. Aired on March 19th, 2000, 16 years and 8 months before Donald Trump was elected the 45th president of the United States. Writer Dan Graney has explained the creative logic in detail. In a 2016 interview with The Hollywood Reporter, he said, "It was a warning to America." That just seemed like the logical last stop before hitting bottom. It was pitched because it was consistent with the vision of America on going insane. He wasn't reaching for absurdity randomly. He needed President Lisa to have inherited problems that were beyond fixing, a country that had gone as wrong as it possibly could. Trump, in that context, wasn't a random celebrity name. He was the writer's shorthand for catastrophic mismanagement. The punchline was the wreckage, not the man. The crucial context that transforms this from prophecy into brilliant satire: Trump had already launched a presidential exploratory campaign with the Reform Party in 1999. The year this episode was being written, he was holding rallies. He was appearing on talk shows. He was generating real political headlines. Al Jean confirmed this in a 2025 interview with MIT Technology Review. What people don't remember is that in the year 2000, it wasn't such a crazy name to pick because Trump was talking about running as a Reform Party candidate. His bid fizzled. He wouldn't seriously pursue the presidency again for another 15 years. But the writers had already written him in, and the tape was sitting in Fox's archive. Now for the myth that needs killing. The most viral image associated with this prediction, Trump descending an escalator surrounded by cheering supporters, rendered in Simpsons animation, does not come from Bart to the Future. It comes from Trumptastic Voyage, a short produced in July 2015 after Trump's real escalator announcement at Trump Tower. The original 2000 episode contains zero escalator imagery. The prediction is the spoken line about President Trump and the economic devastation that followed, not the escalator visual that millions believe they remember from a 2000 broadcast they never actually saw. The aftershocks rippled for years. When Trump won in November 2016, the season 28 premiere opened with Bart writing on the chalkboard, "Being right sucks." When Kamala Harris was inaugurated as vice president in January 2021 wearing a purple coat and pearl necklace, viewers noticed the visual parallel to animated President Lisa. Showrunner Mike Scully noted the outfit was likely a nod to Hillary Clinton or simply a power look. But by that point, the show had built enough of a prediction mythology that coincidence and intention had become impossible to separate. Dan Graney, for his part, has leaned into his unlikely legacy. On Instagram in 2025, he wrote, "I'm best known as the writer of the episode of The Simpsons that predicted the Trump presidency presidency 16 years before it happened. I don't know how I see the future. I'm not a scientist. I'm a prophet. He was joking. Probably. What makes this prediction the most remarkable on this list isn't just the gap. It's that the writers weren't guessing. They were extrapolating, following the logic of American culture to its ugliest conclusion, naming the name and burying it in a throwaway line that nobody was supposed to take seriously. The joke assumed something so absurd it could only be used to signal total national collapse. And then it just happened. That's the real story behind every entry on this list. The Simpsons didn't predict the future. It had smarter writers than everyone else, more episodes than any show in television history, and zero hesitation about saying the uncomfortable thing out loud. Throw enough darts. Hire enough Harvard graduates. Run the logic far enough. Sometimes the joke lands before the world catches up. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.